So good morning again, everybody. Good morning. Fantastic. So everybody has taken their seats, and all those who are still remaining standing, I kindly ask you to take your seats so that we can start this auspicious occasion. So hi again, everyone. My name is Hawa Diallo. I have had a special honor to serve as one of the two co-chairs of the Planning Committee for the 67th UN DPI NGO Conference. I also proudly serve in the NGO Relations, Advocacy, and Special Events section of the Department of Public Information. It's really my pleasure and honor to warmly welcome you all to this conference. While we celebrate the opening ceremony of the conference, we are mourning a terrible loss we suffered over the weekend. We lost Kofi Annan, former UN Secretary General, a champion of civil society partnership with the United Nations. I kindly ask now that we all take a moment of silence as we view a tribute video honoring the late Secretary General Kofi Annan.
Discussion with the Council on the situation in Rakhine.
As Secretary General of the United Nations,
Secretary General of the United Nations,
solemnly swear.
External to the organization.
Congratulations.
Too many vulnerable communities in New World where governments, NGOs, individuals
It is now my honor to introduce our first speaker of the 67th UN DPI NGO Conference, Ms. Alison Smale, Undersecretary General for Global Communications, Department of Public Information. The floor is now yours, Alison.
Thank you so much. Before I get into the formal part of the speech, I just want to say how really happy I am to see this room full of people who either want to think about young people or who are themselves young. And I hope we have a fun 2 days figuring out what can we do to make young people even more part of our world and our decisions. So, Excellencies, distinguished ambassadors, Ms. Winnie Byanyima, Chair of the 67th United Nations Department of Public Information Non-Governmental Organizations Conference, and Executive Director of Oxfam International, co-chairs and members of the Conference Planning Committee, NGO and civil society representatives, members of the media, friends of the United Nations, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. My name is Alison Smale, and I am the Under-Secretary General for Global Communications. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all here to the 67th UN DPI NGO Conference. And it is an honor to have so many distinguished guests among us from close by and afar. We gather here at a time, as we have just heard, when the UN is reflecting on the legacy of our former Secretary General Kofi Annan, who passed away at the weekend. I know that Mr. Anand touched many of your lives, as he did mine. I hope that his legacy of service and his commitment to inclusion will inspire our discussions. We, the peoples, together finding global solutions for global problems, is not just a conference title. It represents the collective resolve of all of us present here and of those of you participating via the live webcast to re-examine the value of multilateralism and reaffirm our support for it. The conference title brings us back to our very roots, to the words that begin preamble of the Charter of the United Nations, we, the peoples. We at the United Nations are mindful that we are ultimately at the service of the peoples of the world, represented here by the governments of member states and at events like this one by all of you. We know that support for multilateralism has decreased in some parts of the world, and we must face the fact that the United Nations has sometimes struggled on delivering the ambitious mandate that the world set for it in 1945, maintaining peace and security, defending human rights, and supporting sustainable development. We all live in the real world, and while we subscribe to common ideals, we also understand the imperative of delivering results. We know that the UN needs to be better fit for purpose. In that vein, the current Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, has championed a repositioned UN development system as a first major plank of his efforts to reform the organization. Changes to management and to our peace and security architecture are still to come. In the meantime, we believe that a repositioned UN development system will provide opportunities for the UN to partner more effectively with civil society. And our aim is to talk about these opportunities in detail during this conference. Last week, Mr. Guterres launched his annual report on the work of the organization. That report points out that while the world's problems continue to grow, stronger multilateral partnerships with member states, international and regional organizations, and civil society are key to finding solutions to global problems that no nation alone can solve. The ambitious targets outlined in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development pledge to leave no one behind. This is a global agenda that is inspiring action and partnerships in an unprecedented way. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals are an enormous opportunity for all of us, including the UN and civil society, to join forces to achieve its mandate. Together, we must convey the inspiration and transformative potential of the SDGs in the world and work more effectively to achieve them. The UN has achieved gender parity in its senior appointments, a wonderful milestone, but there is more work to be done by us and others to allow women and girls to live up to their full potential. Gender parity is, however, central to our success. Before closing, I would like again to acknowledge the youth presence here. It is no surprise that it is strong given the very good role that youth have played in planning this conference. The UN recognizes the potential of youth to lead and is committed to ensuring that young people have a seat at the table. You will have proof of that in front of your eyes over the course of these next 2 days, and if you don't think you have, please complain. On that note, I would like to thank all of you once again for your commitment and enthusiasm. I wish you all wonderful and productive discussions. I look forward to taking part, and I will do my very best to contribute as I can. Thank you and enjoy your conference.
Thank you, Alison, for those remarks. I would now like to invite my fellow co-chair of the Planning Committee of the conference, Mr. Bruce Knotts.
On behalf of the NGO DPI Executive Committee, it's my honor to welcome you to the 67th NGO DPI Conference in Finding Global Solutions for Global Problems. You notice I said NGO DPI. That's the way I like to say it. We are living in stressful times. We've known about climate change for over 50 years, and we knew how to stop it, and we did nothing. The United States pulled out of both the Kyoto Protocols and the Paris Climate Accords because it wanted a better deal for America. The trouble is that when it comes to global problems, we are all in the same boat. Climate change affects us all, and the deal is global, not national. Climate change is at the root cause of much of global migration, which also affects us all. Hungary and other countries can close borders, but global migration will affect all of us no matter where the migrants go. Nuclear war has never been closer to reality than it is now. With planetary problems, we need global solutions. No one nation can solve these problems. No group of nations can solve these problems. It will take all of us working together. That is the subject of this conference. At the 66th NGO DPI Conference on Education for Global Citizenship, we called for an international day to promote global citizenship education. We are working to realize global citizenship education. Please join us. Now, just two quick announcements. For those of you who would like to network tonight, you are invited to Tuttle's Bar and Grill on 2nd Avenue between 39th and 40th Streets at 7 p.m. The food is on us, the committee. The drinks are on you. You buy your own drinks. On Friday, August 24th, we will have an additional day of the conference at Long Island University in Brooklyn. If you have registered, please attend. Right now, registration is closed. All the seats are taken, similar to this conference here. Finally, everyone should know that all of our events here at the United Nations are free of charge. If you paid money to enter the United Nations, somebody cheated you. The United Nations is for we the peoples, all classes, all genders, all sexual orientations, all colors, all ages, all financial status. It's for everybody. Everyone, everywhere. This is your house. It's your home, and you're welcome here without charge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I think I learned three things. That here in the United Nations Department of Public Information and within our partnership with civil society, we work hard and we play hard. And then the third thing is that we need to be alert and we need to know that the UN is your world and that we're all welcome. Thank you, Bruce. It's time we heard from some young voices who have turned up in high numbers at this conference. I'd now like to invite Ms. Madison Ross, the strong and formidable woman co-chair of the Youth Subcommittee of the 67th UN DPI NGO Conference. Madison is also the NGO Youth Representative to DPI for Mercado Global. Madison, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Howard, for the amazing introduction, and thank you everyone for being here. Hello, my name is Madison Ross, and like Howard mentioned, I am a NGO Youth Representative from Mercado Global and also a co-chair for the Youth Subcommittee for today's conference. And I just would like to once again thank you everyone for your support and just the communal love and family that we've gathered today and for the rest of, hopefully further on after this conference, just to further discuss multilateralism. In that regard, I'm beyond thankful and honored to be given the opportunity to help lead and give voices to a rather underestimated marginalized group such as youth. It reminds me of my additional strides that I make as an African American woman and not being seen as, trying not to be seen as just a muse, but simply as an actual management decision maker for people who look like me. And so I imagine people also would want better representation, better authentic representation in their communities and their leadership communities. And so with that in mind, I take this opportunity to speak with you and also represent myself as a youth and as an African-American woman, just to further ask all generations and all sectors and everyone in this room just to see youth as an equal team player in achieving multilateralism and also achieving the SDGs by 2030. We ask that we are not belittled, we ask that we are given respect, and we ask that you consider us like a family member that you work with, and that in order for you to achieve a goal, because without youth, multilateralism is pointless, if that makes sense. And so with that in mind, because this goes both ways, youth, I ask you, when you're at this conference, I want you to speak up. I want you to be heard. I want you to raise your hand if you have a question. I want you to raise your hand if you feel like another voice is not being heard. I want you just to know that this is a safe environment for you to let yourself be heard, because you are, and I want you to continue being the leaders that you are. And with everyone all together, I would like for us to take in our accountability and responsibility in achieving multilateralism and promotion of the SDGs. And I would also, with that, I'd like to commemorate our youth subcommittee who has worked day and night. We're all sprinkled out there. I am beyond proud of our youth subcommittee. They're out there. We have worked day and night for our youth declaration that is being worked on right now. We hope for all input for our survey as soon as possible. We have worked on our youth caucus that was just this morning and will continue on tomorrow morning. We have worked on our youth jams and other workshops and roundtables just for us to be heard. And I hope for that to serve as an example of how much we are passionate to work with you all, with all generations and sectors, just let you know that we want to be seen as an equal team player, an equally respected team player and such. So with that, I thank you. And also a reminder for today, we have a film series this evening from 6:30 until 8:30, just to further commemorate youth being leaders and promoting the SDGs. So thank you so much. Please come.
Thank you, Madison. We are so happy to report that about 44% of all the people who registered for this conference are youth under the age of 32. So I don't know if you agree with me that perhaps we need to hear more from them right now. Yes? I am so happy now to invite Ms. Sherman Loh, another strong woman. The youth know how to do it, don't they? The women are in charge and leading and taking the way. So Sherman is the second co-chair of the youth subcommittee of the conference, and she's also the NGO youth representative to DPI from the Global Youth Mentorship Initiative. Sherman, please share your words with us.
In 2009, when I was the class leader for my high school, I was responsible for putting together 2 major school events. But both times, I got yelled at by my headmaster for putting too much thoughts into the events. They wanted me to just obey and execute their orders. So the teenager me, of course, my initial reaction was to dig a hole in school's backyard and bury all the direction signs that we were going to use to guide the conference attendees the next day. But don't worry, I didn't do that today. So that was almost a decade ago. But it was an epitome of the time when youth were told to follow, to wait, but not trusted to lead. But that time is over, ladies and gentlemen. That time is over. Last year, April, I came to the UN for the first time actually sitting right here in this very room on the front row. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but a bit more than a year later today, I'm able to stand proudly in front of this microphone knowing that my team, the Youth Subcommittee and the Youth Representative Steering Committee has done a great job that deserves this spotlight. I want to Today, I also want to take this opportunity to thank all youth champions, particularly the DPI staff members, Hawa, Swati, Pooja, just to name a few. Let's give them a round of applause. They have done this tremendous work in building platforms for youth to voice of our opinions, to lead, to contribute to the global solutions. Thank you all so much for listening to us, for giving us this platform, for having faith in us. So aside from the Youth Subcommittee that you already heard from Madison, we also have the DPI NGO Youth Representative Steering Committee, which came out of the 2016 NGO Conference. We have the primary role of advising DPI of strategies of engaging young people serving NGOs, advocacy and outreach activities related to the work of the UN. So throughout the conference, in these 2 days, you will see members from Youth Subcommittee and Youth Steering Committee staff at the Youth Hub right there in the visitor lobby. It's a dedicated space for youth and youth supporters to network. Come to talk to us. If you're youth, let us know how we can support you, how we can work with you. If you're youth supporters, tell us how we can improve, how we can all make it happen. Remember, we're all today's leaders. No progress can be made when it's always a day away. And lastly, if we're youth and youth supporters in this room, please join me. Youth for SDGs! Thank you.
Thank you, Sherman. At this point, we are now honored to have Ms. Penny Abewadena, New York City's Commissioner for the International Affairs, here at the conference with us. Oh, here you are, with a nice smile. So I welcome you to the podium.
It is bad luck today that I am the old person following those amazing youth leaders. Thank you so much, Ms. Diallo. Excellencies, colleagues, and honored guests, on behalf of Mayor Bill de Blasio, I would like to welcome all of you to New York City for the 67th UN DPI NGO Conference. I'm honored to be here with you this morning. I would like to especially thank the Undersecretary General and DPI, who are truly our steadfast partners as we work together to find global solutions for global problems. This year's theme, We the Peoples, finding global solutions for global problems, is crucial at any time, but it is especially relevant in this pivotal moment when we are facing profound challenges that transcend national borders and call for local response. Now more than ever, as some governments, whether by choice or by circumstance, are abdicating their leadership role, we like-minded governments, organizations, and international institutions must work together and take action locally in our communities and globally. The future does in fact depend on us. As New York City's Commissioner for International Affairs, I know the importance of developing and supporting global and local connections. New York City is the home of 8.6 million residents spanning 5 boroughs, the United Nations, and we are also proud to be host to the largest diplomatic corps in the world, which includes 193 permanent missions and 115 consulates. The Mayor's Office for International Affairs is uniquely positioned to amplify, share, and learn from policies and best practices from cities and national governments and NGOs around the world. Like many of you in this room, my office looks at much of our work through the lens of the Sustainable Development Goals. Although the SDGs are national government commitments, it has been widely recognized, and I think you'll agree, that cities where the majority of the world's people now live are essential partners to ensuring that the goals are in fact achieved. When world leaders committed to the SDGs in 2015, we in the Mayor's Office established the Global Vision Urban Action Program to use a common framework of the SDGs to learn from, as well as to share our city's innovations in sustainability and equity with cities, countries, and organizations across the globe. Since then, we have been inviting the UN Diplomatic Corps to visit our communities throughout the 5 boroughs to discuss shared challenges and solutions. We also bring city voices, including our agency partners and local NGOs, to the UN to infuse a local perspective in global policy discussion. Additionally, we convene events at the UN to provide a platform for sharing ideas among local, national, and international actors on issues ranging from mental health to gender equity. We also focus on decent work and inclusive economic growth. These events prove to be excellent opportunities both to strengthen implementation by sharing best practices and to, most importantly, build broader political support for achieving the SDGs. Last month, during the high-level political forum, we were thrilled to become the first city in the world to submit a voluntary local review directly to the United Nations. While some countries... Thank you. While some countries have chosen to submit voluntary national reviews, we here in New York City felt that, especially in this political environment, the city perspective was much needed. The voluntary local review is part of our ongoing efforts since 2015 to highlight how our strides towards a more just and equitable society are making the SDGs a local reality. By sharing the review on local work towards the SDGs, the New York City Mayor's Office for International Affairs also continues its advocacy for city perspectives and experiences at the UN. We aim to submit a voluntary local review annually, and we welcome engagement with cities and other SDG stakeholders, such as yourselves, to strengthen these reporting mechanisms. By using the common language of the SDGs to discuss our shared successes and challenges, we know that communities, organizations, and governments around the world have the best chance of working together to achieve all 17 SDGs by 2030. As NGOs, I know many of you are fighting for development that leaves no one behind, and leaving no one behind is at the heart of our work here in New York City as well. To achieve our aspirations fully, New York City focuses its efforts on inclusion to ensure that all who wish to participate and contribute are given an opportunity to do so, and that no one is overlooked. In addition to bringing New York City's perspective and values of inclusion and fairness and cooperation to the UN, we make sure that the importance of the UN and its presence here with the international community is appreciated throughout our 5 boroughs. My agency works to ensure that all New Yorkers understand the value of the UN and what it brings to New York City, and how the global conversations that happen here are relevant in what is taking place in our neighborhoods. In this mission, our partnership with our friends at DPI are extremely vital. I know many of you share my belief that our work must center on youth to be successful, especially given the remarks of our 2 young leaders just now. Specifically, one of my goals is to make sure that every student in New York City gets to know the UN. And that is why my office launched, in partnership with DPI and the UN Foundation, we launched the New York City Junior Ambassadors Program, which aims to bring students from all of our 5 boroughs in the most what's the best way to, in our most vulnerable communities, for them to come to the UN to learn about global goals, but most importantly, once they have that learning, for them to activate in their neighborhoods. The world today has the largest population of young people in history, at 1.8 billion. And thanks to developments in technology, they're more connected than ever before. Our youth here in New York City and around the world hold enormous potential to make global progress on the shared challenges of our time. Since starting the program in October 2015, in fact, on the 70th anniversary of the UN, we have engaged over 1,000 students and educators across the 5 boroughs. We use the SDGs as the windows through which the program participants understand their chosen issues, whether it is climate change or access to quality education. Our junior ambassadors are translating what they're learning in the classroom and at the UN into community action. And I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but I have some favorites, and one in particular is a junior ambassador from the South Bronx. Her SDG, she is an SDG advocate for SDG 14, Life Underwater, and her activation in her neighborhood is cleaning up the South Bronx River, which is a polluted waterway in her neighborhood. I am proud to say that what she and all the other ambassadors are doing represent the best of New York City values. In fact, what I believe are the best of American values. While the 2030 agenda is ambitious, we in New York City are showing every day that progress is possible. Our advocacy for local implementation of the SDGs, for the vital role of the UN in our world, and for youth empowerment, it shows our commitment to the future outlined in the global goals. The progress we are making would not be possible without key partnerships and community support, including and especially with NGOs. And what we have achieved together already is just the beginning. I look forward to continuing all this work with you. Thank you so much for your time, and enjoy your conference.
Thank you so much, Ms. Abewadena. And thanks for that really warm New York City welcome. A New York City person myself, having grown here. And also thanks for the warm welcome from Mayor de Blasio's office as well. So now I'm happy to play a video message from the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, Ms. Jayapma Wickramanayake. She regrets that she can't be here with us, but I can guarantee you that she's here with us in spirit. So let's roll the video.
Hello everyone. I welcome you to the 67th United Nations Department of Public Information Non-Governmental Organizations Conference. I would like to thank you all for participating in this conference, for showing up and lending your voice to this vital discussion. This incredible platform for civil society participation at the United Nations is unique and invaluable. The 2 days at this conference will focus on the value of just and equitable multilateral processes, enhancing civil society partnership within a repositioned UN development system, and identifying innovative approaches in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. Last year, at the very same conference, we discussed the importance of intergenerational dialogue. In this light, I am heartened to see such effective mechanisms of youth participation, leadership, and a dedicated space for young people to lead discussions on each of these focus areas and working closely with key actors from across varied generations. I call on all the young people here at the 67th UN DPI NGO Conference to use this platform to create lasting partnerships and adduce knowledge and information from every session that can help amplify your voices and your needs at global, national, and local levels, and by extension, effectively and positively impacting the ongoing global youth movements. So, keep up the discussions and the momentum until we are sure that no one is left behind. I wish you all a dynamic and productive discussion. Thank you.
Are you inspired? Well, you ain't seen nothing yet, so hold on to your seats. Because now I have the pleasure and honor to invite Ms. Winnie Byanyima, Chair of the 67th UN DPI NGO Conference and Executive Director of Oxfam International, to rock the house.
Thank you very much, Howard. No pressure. Good morning, friends and colleagues. How are you? It's my great pleasure to formally welcome you to the 67th Annual UN DPI NGO Conference. Welcome, welcome. Karibu sana, as we say in my language. You are the change makers. You are the activists. You are the campaigners who fly the flag of progress at the front lines of every fight against injustice, against inequality, against poverty in every corner of the world. You've traveled from many countries to be here amongst friends, old and new, so that we may learn from our mutual struggles, from our successes, and set about finding global solutions for global problems. You know, some would like us not to think about these problems as global problems. They would like us to see them as problems affecting only our state, our island, or our continent. And they would like us to work on unilateral solutions. Some also would like us, NGOs, simply to cheer them, to support the solutions that governments or the private sector proposes. That's what they would want. But that's not our role. Our role is always to push for more than what they propose. Of course, we each have our own battles to fight. Some fight to escape conflict and poverty. Others fight to win democratic rights. Others to achieve equality. We fight different battles. But there are many problems that we share that are common to all of us. The world is becoming hotter and the weather more extreme. Likewise, this rule-based order is under increasing pressure, and the politics that govern it, like the weather, are becoming more extreme. Don't you think so? As it does, we become less able to address the dangers of climate change, the injustices of gender inequality, the curse of poverty, the terror of war. We are less and less able to find solutions. We cannot afford a world that is only governed by force and not by law. We need a just multilateral system and rules-based order. And most of all, we need it to stand for human rights and to include the voices of ordinary people. Just 4 days ago, we lost a man who spent his life devoted to that idea, a true giant of multilateralism, a great African. Kofi Annan provided the highest moral leadership, not just in this space of the United Nations, but in the world at large. His humility and his humanity defined a style of leadership that is so dearly needed and missed today. This conference aims to continue his legacy. It's founded in the belief that together we are more than the sums of our parts, and that global problems must be met with global solutions and with people's voices at the heart. So friends, colleagues, this is our job in the coming days, and it is our joy too. In the round tables, in the workshops, we must find that voice, that common voice. We must be bold. I urge you to be bold and to stay true to our purpose of pushing our communities, our societies, our world forward in justice and in peace. So thank you so much. I look forward to engaging in all these sessions with you. I'll keep running in and out. I'm excited. I hope you're excited as I am. Thank you all.
Thank you, Winnie, for that #Wednesday wisdom that I think we all needed today. And with Winnie's remarks, that brings us to the end of our welcoming segment at the conference. But before we step to the next part, we would like to introduce our first performance this morning. We are proud to host Jeffrey Peralta, who will perform No Poverty in Unity for us. Jeffrey?
Good morning, everybody. Really quickly before I start, I am here with Create 2030. We are a growing network of artists that are lending our voices to help elevate the SDGs. And by a show of hands, how many people in here consider themselves artists? Culinary included, don't be shy, I'm not inviting you up on stage. Well, so each and every one of you are welcome to go speak to Lisa Russell right after this. She is the creator and founder of Create 2030. So just like youth voices are very important, we feel like artists are very important, and we thank the UN for having us here today. And again, this poem is called There Is No Poverty in Unity. If only it rained coffee, cloudy with a chance of no poverty. I wish I could cry tears of abundance for all of my nations that don't have to eat. Why don't we water our neighbor's seeds? I have one, I have 2 pairs, but I'm not satisfied until I get 3. If only every teardrop I cried could plant a tree, I would plant my roots deep in sustainability, opening up a world to create a possibility of unity. No more pot-bellied children extending their skeletal arms for a bite to eat. No more people sleeping in parks because they can't work enough jobs to keep them off the streets. No more mothers sending their children to beg in the streets, no more. Protect the women, for they are the ones that have children to teach, and we all deserve the life for which we have prayed. I pray that no poverty is a goal that can be sustained. We can deal with the pain of not doing anything sooner. I promise to take matters into my own hands and start now to reduce inequality, create opportunities, rise up to disparity. Let us flaunt all of our unity. We, the peoples of this planet, depend on each other. We don't have the same mom, but I can look at you and consider you a brother. Sir, I am counting on you. May the willing and able rise to the occasion. No poverty. Imagine it evaporates away like rain condensation. Envision a world where everyone has enough because we were all put here for each other's consideration. You are an extension of me. And as long as I have a moral calling, I will love you like I love myself.
Thank you, Jeffrey. That really was inspiring and absolutely a moving performance. I think it resonated with everyone in the room. Let's show her our love. Come on. I also want to remember everybody, I know that everybody's busy right now on social media, right? So please remember to use the hashtag of the conference, hashtag UN NGO 2018. As I always say in my events, let's kick all this discussion out of this room. Let's take it out of First Avenue and let's send it out right there globally. So now as we move into the second segment of this morning, I have the honor to introduce our next speaker, Her Excellency Ambassador Martha Poby. She is the permanent representative of Ghana to the United Nations, and she's currently serving as the Vice President of the Office for the President of the 72nd session of the UN General Assembly. Excellency, Madame, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Under Secretary General Alison Smale, Madam Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start today, this morning, by relaying the regrets of the President of the General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Miroslav Lajcak. The President's travel schedule did not permit him to attend this crucial meeting, and so I'm honored to read his statement on his behalf. But before doing so, I would like to use this opportunity to acknowledge with thanks the tribute that was paid to our departed former Secretary General Kofi Annan at the beginning of this meeting. His sad passing has come as a shock to us in Ghana, and it's been a difficult time. But we're comforted because we see that his vision is being carried forward. And seeing so many of you in this room doing what you do is comforting. So we celebrate him, we salute him, and we trust that his vision will be carried forward. I would now like to make two main points. The first is about people. We the peoples. These are the first words of the United Nations Charter, and they are very clear. They do not leave room for any questions on who the real stakeholders of this organization are. Because the United Nations is here, first and foremost, for people. And not just certain kinds of people, like diplomats or dignitaries, but people of all ages, from all regions, countries, and walks of life. That is why the needs of people on the ground must guide the United Nations work, whether it is taking place from a field office or in this very building. We need to hear the stories of real people. We need to listen to their ideas, and we need to learn from their everyday realities. One way of doing that is through the inclusion of civil society representatives. They have their fingers on the pulse. They know more about what does and what does not work on the ground. And they can speak for the people who do not have a platform in rooms like this one. The added value of civil society participation has been seen very clearly. NGOs, academics, and grassroots activists played a crucial role in the process to develop the Global Compact for Migration, sharing research, information, and stories from the ground. And they have helped to drive other ideas, other areas of the UN's work, from global health to sustainable development. So the truth is that civil society participation is not an objective. It is not something we should work towards or aim for. Instead, it is a necessity. Without it, we will fail, not just in our work, but also in meeting the commitments made through the UN's Charter. My second point today is about multilateralism. As the concept note for this event points out, global challenges need global solutions. And we are facing many of these challenges today, from international terrorism and the threat of nuclear war to climate change and growing global inequalities. No one country can solve any of these problems alone. Multilateralism is the only way. There are countless multilateral organizations around the world doing valuable work, but none are as representatives as the UN General Assembly. The Assembly can deal with any issue on the global agenda. It has one of the most legitimate voices in the world. It gives every country, no matter its power or size, the same standing. And civil society is crucial to its work and its future. That is why, with the support of DPI, the first ever one-on-one briefing between the President of the General Assembly and civil society representatives took place in the early days of this session. We need to remember, it is not just about ensuring civil society can participate in the work of the United Nations. That is crucial, but we must also remember the influence civil society actors have.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you to DPI, Alison, the others. Thanks so much for organizing this and for having me here. Let me address or use 3 points today, one more than Martha, but I will build on what she just said. First one, why the notion of global governance? Why this notion of global solutions? What does that mean? Why is that relevant or even real? Second, why you, civil society? And third, the example of all this, or at least the last one, which is the Global Compact on Migration. Why global governance? We all grew up, all of you, with the notion of globalization in our heads, without really understanding what does that mean. And today, at least, what globalization means is that challenges have become global, their solutions have become global, and opportunities have also become global. In other words, none of us, no single country in the world, and this is not because we are nice or not nice or ethical or not ethical, it's simply a reality, can address any of these alone because they have become global. Because both challenges and solutions, as well as opportunities, as I was mentioning, do not recognize borders. They are simply interlinked everywhere. So as Martha was saying, development, well-being, which is the major goal of all of us at the end of the day, can only be achieved together. No country in the world, again, can aspire to build wealth, to build prosperity, to improve the quality of life of their peoples alone. In the old days, the international community and the multilateral system and the UN was very much about zero-sum games. It was very much about my prosperity instead of yours. And it worked. But at this time, or in this time of full globalization and interdependence, that no longer works. So again, it's not that we are nicer than before. It's a simple reality. If today I want to build prosperity for Mexico, I need to make sure that we work together to build prosperity for our neighbors as well. And this is what the United Nations has become today. This place where we all together are trying to build prosperity for ourselves by helping the others to create prosperity for themselves. And that's a very important point. So again, the ethical issues are there, of course. Underlying this, absolutely. But it is also a question of self-interest. Self-interest is not bad, it's good. That's the main motivation of all of us, in the good sense. And of countries, absolutely. But the point, then again, is that our self-interest today requires to work with others. And this is why we need to build global governance, global solutions, measures, policies that help us all solve the challenges that we are facing. If we are, when we are talking about challenges, and I will say this a little bit further on migration, but this is relevant now. If problems today, as well as opportunities, as I was mentioning, are inherently transnational, obviously you can't find solutions to them nationally. It's almost arithmetical thing. So that, keep it in mind. Civil society, and again, I quote Martha. She's absolutely right when she says today is a need. Yes, are we becoming more democratic in this organization? Absolutely. Are we becoming more transparent? Absolutely. Are we becoming more inclusive? Absolutely. But in addition to those things, which are very relevant, of course, we are slowly but surely understanding that the only way we can address these challenges, benefit from these global opportunities, find these global solutions, and improve the quality of life of all, we need the civil society. Not only because I have never liked this notion that the civil society is like a sort of a conscious coming to us, telling us what is right and what is wrong. I don't believe that. What I do believe is that you are telling us very often what is real. What are the needs? What are the real challenges of people? If this organization has become the place where we really are working to create prosperity, that prosperity creation requires listening to you. But also, and equally important, you should be the communication channels between us and the rest of the people. Also to explain to the people what this organization is about, what this global work is about, why this work is relevant for people. Again, in the old days, this organization was very much about peace and security, which still does, of course, but the issues were more abstract for people that did not live in complex regions or challenged regions by threats of peace or to peace. For the rest of the world, even in my country, Latin America, Europe, and many others, the UN was this far away, important, perceived institution that did something important globally. But today, unlike then, this faraway organization is no longer far away. It's an organization that, because of what I am saying, is creating the conditions for ordinary walking human beings around the world to improve the quality of life. You wouldn't have thought 10 years ago that here we would be dealing with water, housing, health, financing, urbanization, cities, food security, agriculture. This is what we are doing now. Nothing more real, nothing more humane than that. Now, the example, migration. Migration has been, or it was until before the Global Compact, probably, or one of the few at least, remaining seriously global challenges that did not enjoy any kind of global understanding, any kind of global arrangements. And why? You know why. Migration is political, is ideological, is emotional, is psychological, and is above all, or it was above all, badly understood. So countries around the world were not too keen to allow this and any other organization or global space to put on the table and discuss anything that would harm or hamper their sovereign right to decide who enters their borders and who does not, and under what terms. And that approach, when we all were thinking that what we were doing was to protect our sovereign rights and our borders, in reality was self-defeating for ourselves. It was self-defeating for many reasons. But again, I go back to my mathematics or arithmetics. If something is transnational, you can't possibly think you will solve it nationally. It's as simple as that. But also because we slowly understood not only that migration it almost comes with humanity, but in fact more than that, in very practical terms, that migration in fact is an incredible economic engine. And when you start understanding that, the logic starts to change as well. And then your own approach to self-security, borders also starts to change. Because you start to understand your own security and your own sovereignty in a different light. And let me give you 2 or 3 figures that people around the world are normally not aware, not even us here in the UN. Within a parenthesis, we, Ambassador Lauber and myself, when we started this process, the first thing we said after realizing how little we know or we knew about migration was, and we said it to all of our countries and colleagues, was we can't possibly negotiate something we don't understand, even if we always do it in the UN or sometimes. So let's understand it. And the things we discovered is what I was saying. There are 255 million of migrants around the world. And by learning this, by the way, we started to demystify migration, to remove dogmas, prejudices, demagoguery, and replace it by data and evidence. So 250-something million migrants around the world. That first discovery are not people running from poor countries wanting to reach rich countries, south, north. No, in fact, the majority of migration is intra-regional. It happens within region, it's south-south. And by the way, it's also north-south, meaning from rich countries to middle-income countries or others. Second realization was that these 250-something million people around the world represent only, that's not a rationalization, a realization, that's only data, but it's important, only 3.3% of the global population, which is, by the way, even if some people have felt that we are experiencing a crisis of massive migration, in reality, if you go back in history and you check all these data, you will realize that it has been fairly steady. 2.9, 3, 3.1, 3.2, but that's it, out of the whole global population. But the most interesting thing is that these 3.2% of the global population contributes with 9% of the global GDP, producing almost 7 trillion US dollars every year. I'm sure you understand the size of this figure. What this tells us, or told us when we were negotiating, it told us that migration, above all, not only happens and will keep happening, but has enormous potentials. Enormous potential, creates wealth, creates prosperity, and by the way, benefits enormously and economically speaking, far more the countries of destination than the countries of origin. So with these realities at hand, what we set to do, and we did, and this is what we have now, was to design an instrument that would, down the road, make migration safe, orderly, and regular. This is not about stopping migration. This is not about encouraging migration. This is not about promoting migration. This is not about demonizing migration. This is only about making it safe, making it orderly, and making it regular. An amazing reality also, politically speaking, diplomatically as well, that we managed to do. The UN managed to produce this negotiation at a time where global rhetoric on migration hit a historical low, if I can put it that way, where prejudices on migration and on migrants were put on the center of public opinion, where political systems, politicians, institutions around the world were facing enormous challenges, political challenges, social challenges, because of ill-perceived migration. Well, despite all of that, this organization and almost all member states managed to produce this enormous, historic global commitment to make, as I said, migration safe, orderly, and regular. And I conclude with another word on the role of civil society. Migration is not, as we have found or we are constantly seeing in every global challenge or issue. They are not necessarily challenges, issues. One where the solutions or the measures or the policies can only be in the hands of governments. They can't. They are both, by definition, multifactorial and multi-stakeholders. So yes, governments have the last word. Yes, government put in place policies. Yes, governments put in place laws and enforce them. But the policies for them to be real, for them to be actually truly implemented, we need the other actors. And the other actors are not only NGOs, are this vast broad of stakeholders from the civil society. NGOs, in the case of migration, migrants themselves, diasporas, and they came to this room to explain the reality, to make their case, to tell us what works and what does not work. The private sector, companies, we needed here companies, because companies are the employers. The vast majority of migration is labor. So companies were the ones telling us you need to do this and that. We understand and we need skills in this way. We need you to help us with right policies on how to recruit globally, on benefits, salaries. Then other NGOs came to tell us about trafficking persons, smuggling, trade unions. Trade unions came to explain their concerns on labor markets, their concerns on potential displacement of employment by migration or supplementing markets with migration, etc., etc. All this, again, to tell you and to conclude that, yes, today this organization has become much more open, both because of a slowly but steady development of government's conviction that this is the right way, but also, and most real, if you like, and more importantly probably, because we have understood that without the civil society, there's no way we can produce or create the solutions that actually we need to improve, to solve or to address the challenges that we face, and above all, to create wealth for all, to improve prosperity in all countries, to reduce inequality, to improve governance, etc., etc. And with all of that, to do what is the major goal of this organization, to make sure that we all can live in peace and in prosperity. Thank you so much.
Don't let the spin get you down. Things are moving fast. Hold on tight and you let keep your self-respect, your very pride. Get yourself in gear, keep your stride. Never mind your feet, 'cause brighter days will soon be here. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Keep on walking tall. Hold your head up high. Lay your dreams right up to the sky. Sing your greatest song, and you keep going, going on. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Thank you.
2.2 billion. That is the estimated number of children in the world today. Almost a third of the global population. 264 million. That's the number of children who don't go to school, according to UNESCO's 2017 Global Education Monitoring Report. 168 million. According to an ILO report, that's the number of children who are trapped in child labor, and almost half of them are engaged in hazardous work. If these numbers aren't staggering enough, then dwell for a moment on the plight of the girl child, because the large majority of these numbers are girls who have to struggle every day against centuries of biases and mindsets that have no place in modern society. A girl's struggle for life in dignity begins in the womb and till the day we die. Sitting in this air-conditioned, plush auditorium in one of the world's greatest cities, you might find it difficult to relate to these horrifying numbers which I just mentioned. But these aren't just mere statistics. They are people like you and me who have the same rights to a life of dignity, freedom, and opportunity. And I've made it my mission to challenge the status quo at every opportunity since I was 8 years old. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kekisha. I'm the Youth Ambassador of World Future Council and the founder president of Green Hope Foundation. I'm 18 years old, being born in the year of the new millennium, the same year the United Nations adopted the Millennium Development Goals, which, as you know, were 8 targets ranging from poverty eradication, environmental sustainability, to building global partnerships that were supposed to transform our world and set it on the road to sustainability. While there has been progress in many areas since then, the challenges that confront us have taken on new dimensions. Our world today has more refugees than it did during World War II. The debilitating impacts of climate change have given rise to a new term, climate refugees. We face the impacts of global warming every day and in all parts of the world. And despite knowing this, some world leaders still shrug it off as a myth and continue to pump billions of dollars into industries that pollute the air we breathe and poison the water that we drink. And who, I ask you, is going to suffer from the consequences of this environmental desecration? It is us, the children and youth of today, the future generations, whose destiny and well-being are at stake. This must change, and this is why young people like me are speaking out all across the world, demanding our rights to live with dignity, because we are the citizens of today and tomorrow. But we will not live to see our tomorrow if our today is not taken care of. Environmental apathy must be done away with. We, the youth, have a leadership role to play and mold the future the way we want it. This belief led me to establish Green Hope Foundation in 2012 on my return from Rio +20 with the fundamental objective of providing children and young people with a platform to learn about environmental and sustainability challenges, how to take actions to mitigate them, and define their own destiny. What started out as an initiative of a 12-year-old girl has now become an international organization with over 1,000 members in 11 countries, all working to fight to mitigate climate change, stopping land degradation, promoting biodiversity conservation, practicing sustainable consumption, and demanding gender equality. I've realized that the greatest hurdle towards achieving a sustainable future is a lack of awareness amongst civil society. Therefore, we use education for sustainable development as a transformative tool to engage and educate children and youth, focusing on the marginalized sections because their empowerment is key to equitable progress. Additionally, in my capacity as the Youth Ambassador of World Future Council, I passionately campaign for future justice, working to stop unsustainable trends, and working to create policies that help to create and build better futures for the current and future generations. If we are to solve the problems and challenges of our world today, there must be a shift in the power equation. Young people must have access to define their own destiny, the freedom to define their own destiny. They must have access to education, to opportunity, to gainful employment, and not lead a life of bondage. Our generation is the last one that has the opportunity to do something to save our planet from total annihilation. Change needs a catalyst, and that catalyst is you and me. Every day of inaction is pushing us further and further away from our dream